Hello, and today we're going to be looking at um, a deck I played at locals. I went 2-3 with, and as you'll know by the title, this will be unfinished gizmeks. Um, it's unfinished because I'm missing a small number of cards. Well, I'll go through those with you as and when I get them. But first, to explain a little bit about gizmeks. So they are a deck that's not even. That's probably well and truly non-meta at the moment. No one really plays them as a deck, though you might see one of them in if does occasionally see play in a couple of other decks. But they are all machines which share an interesting feature, which is their attack and defense are the same, and they can bounce off each other to search or do stuff based on those. And then the other thing they do is they do banishing face down, but which is unusual because most decks struggle with that. This deck actually has a couple of cards that mean I can either shuffle them back or add to hand and bits like that. So yeah, I'll discuss that, and then I'll do I'll do the deck profile, and I'll discuss how it went at locals. But as you'll probably see in the title, I went 2 and 3, which, given the deck, I don't think's too bad. So, without further ado, I've split the deck into 3 piles to make this easier, but I'll explain stuff as I go along. So first up, I was running 2 of the field spell. This lets me, during my monsters entering my main phase, I can excavate the top 3 cards, pull out if there's a gizmek monster, I can add that to hand, but the other 2 cards are banished face down, or if there isn't, all 3 are banished face down. It also has it each time a machine monster with its attack and defense are the same, so basically a gizmek monster's summoned, I add a counter. When it gets to 10, only those monsters can activate their effects, so I can lock my opponents out of their monster effects. I've got 2 Gizmek Inaba, the Hopping Hare of Haruto. This card lets me special summon basically another Gizmek from hand in defense position, or I can banish this card from the graveyard to target one of those, basically the gizmeks. Only that monster can attack, but its attack and defense becomes the combined original attack of all the machine monsters on the field, so basically all the other gizmeks. Which means you can suddenly make a really big monster with the board and just cause a lot of damage in the battle phase. That's a 2 off. 3 off is Gizmek Macquarie, the Ferocious Fang Fortress. If there's 6 more banished face down cards, which is really easy to do in this deck, I can normal summon him without tributing. He's level 6. I can discard a monster, basically a Gizmek monster, from deck to add one from deck and hand. So if there's one I don't want to play, but I want in the graveyard, I can discard it to add one I do want to hand. And if it's destroyed from the monster zone, I shuffle 6 of my banished cards into the deck, so it just lets me reclaim cards. A 2 off, there's a lot of 2 offs in this deck, is Gizmek Uka, the Festive Fox of. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that word because I'm not entirely sure, but each time your opponent normal special summons, you inflict 300 damage, and it's got the following effects. If a monster special summoned from main deck Except during damage step, you can special summon this card from hand. If it's normal or special summoned, you target a face-up monster your opponent controls. Special summon one, basically a gizmek with the same attribute. Really useful for burn damage and combo decks, and getting out a free one on board. So on turn 1, it's if your opponent's going first, it's entirely possible to do with 2 monsters on board. Even better if it's against an earth monster and you get a second one out, because they'll stack and do 600 damage per summon. Another 2-of Gizmek Nakanaki, the Sunrise Sigma. This one you tribute basically one of the Gizmeks, doesn't have to be its own, just special summon from deck another one that's a lower level. And you can banish this from graveyard to add to your hand a banished face down machine monster, so basically another Gizmek. So, oh no, I've looked through, I've discovered a banished card I want, I can add that monster to hand. Really useful. Gizmek Orochi. This is probably the main one that most people will be familiar with. Quick effect, if it's hand on your graveyard, banish 8 cards face down, the top 8 face down with your deck, special summon this, and on a turn that's not been activated, you could banish 3 from extra deck face down, target a monster in the field, face up monster in the field to destroy it. Really useful in the grind game. Strong monster, 2/4/5/0 attack, and yeah. Next up is Gizmek Akame, the Hailbringer Hog. This one, if you already control a Gizmek, basically you can special summon it from your hand. Yes, they do technically say machines whose attack equals its own defense, so there are other cards it would work with. It's just primarily Gizmeks are the obvious ones. You can banish this card from graveyard, target one of them, and then send a machine monster from deck to the graveyard with a lower level, and it gains that attack defense equal to the level of the monster sent to graveyard times 100. So you can do a small attack boost. That's really, these next 3 cards are the ones I need more of. So, Gizmek Akame, the dreaded Deluge Dragon. I've got it at 1, it needs to be at 2 for consistency. So you can pay 1500 life points to destroy all monsters in the field that was special summoned from extra deck, but you can only attack with 1 monster the turn you use that. Once per turn, if you 2 or more monsters special summoned from the extra card on the field, you can special summon this card. And if it's sent to graveyard by an opponent's cards, you can banish 1 monster from your opponent's graveyard to gain life points equal to its attack. So you can get rid of really good monsters that are now in the extra deck, in the graveyard. Gizmek Kaku, the Supreme Shining Sky Stag. Again, monster be at 2. If a monster is in the extra monster zone, I can special summon this card from hand. Then I can once per turn do a target of a monster in the extra monster zone, so the middle spaces, and equip it to this. When this destroys a monster in battle, I summon the equipped monster and then can attack with it as well. As again, that wants to be at 2. Doesn't come up often, but it does occasionally. And the last one, Gizmek Danuguku, the Mobile Intellect. Again, I've got it at 1, wants to be at 2. If it's normal special summoned, I basically added, in this case, a Gizmek to the top of the deck. I can banish this card from graveyard, target machine monster in graveyard, and just special summon in defense position. Then would be useful too, but it's really useful. So that's the main Gizmek core. The rest, so I'm now going to go through I'll go through the rest of the monsters and the spells. So these are all one-offs in the deck, although one of them wants to be played at more. So, Nemesis Corridor. If I've got a face-up banished, I can shuffle it back into deck, special summon from this hand, tribute it off, and I can get into Thunder Dragon Colossus. Also just gives me, and some of the ones that banish themselves face up, I can nicely shuffle them back. I've got a Carnot, the Eternal Machine. So can only be special summoned from hand or graveyard in a duel where an opponent has used a monster effect, which these days means most monsters have used effect on their turn, on your turn, so you can just, it's a free special summon. It's a once per turn monster negate. Oh no, sorry, it's not a monster negate. So once per turn, if your opponent activates a monster effect, this gains 1000, so it goes up to 4000 attack. If it's sent to graveyard, but not from hand or deck, you can shuffle this card into the deck, so it recycles itself, gains attack whenever your opponent, once per turn when your opponent uses a monster effect, so you can get strong because that's a permanent. And I've got one Jinzo. Stops trap cards. I didn't know if anyone's going to be playing Odeon, so I ran it at 1 just in case, because a lot of these special summon out. I can go normal, and then they're going to have a hard time playing their deck. Ran Marju to Ursa. This is one I need 2 more copies of. So the attack and defense of this card becomes the number of cards removed from play, of my cards removed from play times 400. I got this to just over 8,000 attack, oh, just under 9,000 attack the other day. That works really well with this deck. One Dimension Shifter. Let's make sure all cards are banished if they go to the graveyard. I'm only running one off because I don't want to. My deck doesn't particularly like Shifter, but going first, I can still set up a smallish board and do things. But it's there to interrupt my opponent's first turn. Blue Eyes Jet Dragon. This is specifically a Metaltronus target. Other than that, it has no other effects in the deck. It's specifically to out Detonator. And then Cyber Dragon. It's a free special summon if your opponent going second. And it also lets me use a few things in the extra deck, which I'll show in a minute. Spells and traps. Some of these I do want to change, but I'll note those if not. 3 limited removal. Doubles the attacks of all my machine monsters until end of turn, and then during end phase they're destroyed. This works really well because it means I can get stuff into the graveyard. I can do a lot of damage, and it's not once per turn, so this stacks, so if I have multiple ones I can do a lot of damage. 2 Regeki. I need to find my third. Just destroy all monsters my opponent controls. Forbidden Droplets. By sending other cards from hand or field to graveyard, I can negate that many effect monsters and half their attacks at end phase. And they can't activate cards of the same type. So send a monster, can't do a monster, send a spell, they can't use spells. You send a trap, can't do traps. And that's a once per turn. And it's a quick effect, you can do it on their turn. Next up, 3 Metaltronus. Target a face-up non-token monster opponent controls. Special summon monster from hand, deck, or extra deck. It has 2 or more of the same type of attributes and or attacks, but negate its effects. And if you do negate, you negate that targeted monster's effects. And if they have the same name, you banish both face down. Also useful by deck, and your opponent can activate targeted monster's effect in response to this card's activation. As I say, just using jets, but I've also got one in extra deck for a couple of other decks. 2 lightning storms. Going second board breaker, I can destroy either all the attack facing monsters or their spells and traps. Dark holes, again, just to destroy all monsters on the field. Just do mine, but I have plays around that. Dark Ruler No Mores. Negate all effects of full face monsters opponent controls, but then they take no damage, and neither player can activate monster effects in response. Harpy's Feather Duster, just to remove more spell and trap removal. Gold Sarcophagus, just for the banish, and it also works with Corridor to get me into Colossus quicker, or to just add something to hand. Monster Reborn, I can revive certain monsters, quite useful. Power Bond. If I've got Cyber Dragon in hand, I can just, with a set of machine monsters, I can just make a couple of the extra deck stuff from hand. Talents. If they use any monster effects on my turn, I can draw 2. I can take control of one of their monsters to end phase, or I can look at my opponent's hand to shuffle back. So it's just useful handbreaker / ball breaker / draw. Countergate. This did come up, ironically. When an opponent monster declares a direct attack, I negate the attack, draw a card, and if it's a monster, it's like a normal summon it. And then Terraforming, just an extra search out for the field spell. So that's the main deck. I say it's not quite finished, but extra deck. 1 IP Masquerena. Are there enough special summons I can use Orochi to make this, then bring Orochi back, and then make another Link monster. Got SP Little Knight for the banishing effects, quite useful. Nightmare Phoenix, just for card, just to destroy card. Particularly useful against something like Blue Eyes, board breaking. Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, one of the ones I'm using Cyber Dragon for. Because you don't need to polymerize it, so I can make it with stuff just on board. And if my opponent's got machine monsters, I can use theirs as well. Because its attack is 1,000 times the number of fusion material used to its special summon. In a machine deck, this can get quite strong. Then I use Chimera Tech Overdragon, which must be fusion summoned, hence Power Bond. Send all of the cards I control to graveyard, and its attack and defense becomes equal each the number of fusion materials used for its fusion, times 800, and it can attack opponent's monsters up to the number of times of fusion material. Also, yes, they're both machines that gain the same attack and defense, so I can use them for the field spell. And then Thunder Dragon Colossus. Make off Corridor, just really nice draw and knockbird. So, that's the deck. How did it perform? Well, round 1 went up against Blue Eyes and Faut, and I drew all my board breakers, but I didn't draw any of the monsters, so I didn't do very well. Game 2, I was against Kistira Mutant. Kistira, effects being it banishes an opponent's stuff face down. Against gizmeks, that just helps me because suddenly, without having to do anything, I can summon out my level 6 without tributing before I've even made a rotary. It just really played into my deck's hands, so I beat them. Game 2 went against White Forest, which was, it drew Dark Ruler. I think there's only one game I didn't draw against Dark Ruler in my opening hand, and that was one of the games against White Forest. I drew most of the other board breakers, but in the end I couldn't do much, so lost. So at this point I've won 1, lost 2. Go up against another Blue Eyes player, beat them game 1. I made an 8,800 Grand Mardu and hit into Link 1 Spirit Dragon. Game 2, I got the Fox out that does the 300 burn damage. They got down to 600 lives, but in the end didn't matter because they beat me in the battle. At this point we have just over a minute left on the clock. So we go to game 3, shuffle our decks. I make my opponent go first. They set 1 pass. I have Cyber Dragon in hand and I've got a Orochi. Cyber Dragon specials out. Banish 8 for Orochi. Declare battle. Beat over the face down, which turned out to be failure. Hit them with Orochi for damage. Call main, as I call main phase 2, times called, so I won. Game 3, I went up against Ryseal Rescue Ace, which was really cool. It did the whole linking into Promethean Princess and Solantis, as well as building the Ryseal board. Just couldn't do anything against it, so I went 2-3, which was really good. I then, in my pack, participation pack, I got Grinning Grey Virus, which I've actually read this one yet. Tribute a dark monster with 3,000 less attack. Your opponent chooses 1 card in their hand or deck for every 500 attack that monster had on the field. Retribute a monster with 2,000 or more attack to activate this card. Look at all cards your opponent draws until the end of their 3rd turn. After this card will self-destroy all monsters among them. Cards destroyed and sent to the graveyard by this card's effects cannot activate their own effects. Interesting. Got a Speedroid, then Duke, Daiko, Duke. And then I got an Endymion, the Magisters of Mastery. That's the nice card. So yeah, saying I do need to work on the deck. I might get a couple of people to help. So I've got those missing cards. The deck will be a lot better, but overall, I'm happy with the way the deck's working. It is a hard going second deck, primarily, with board breakers. I can play into stuff going first. It's just I need to think a bit more how I'm going to do that. But yeah, that's this video, and I'll see you next time.